Hiya, Happy New Year and welcome back to my channel, which is pretty much just, it involves me dicking around with the Mark 1 Escort that I built. And I got another little job to do today. I thought I'd make a video about it, and it's making a cover to cover the fuel injectors and mainly the harness, because it's not very pretty, and I wanted to do something about it. Now, I had one before. You might remember from a previous video where I had this fuel injection rail that snapped on me because it's only got two tiny little thin brackets on there. But the fuel injection rail was on the engine, and I welded this piece of aluminium angle to it to give me this ledge here, and then I fabricated this, which bolts to the rail and covers the injectors. And I really like the look of it, but when this fuel rail failed on me, and it might have had something to do with it, with this but hanging off the edge of it, but I don't think so. It's pretty much probably to do with the fact that those are poxy little mounts, and that's quite a weighty lump of alloy. I had to get rid of this, and because I replaced it with a Nuke Performance fuel rail, which I'm really happy with. It looks a lot better. It's got much bigger brackets. It's much stronger. But now my injectors and the harness that supplies the electricity to those injectors is all exposed again. And I don't really like the look. It's not clean under the bonnet like I like it to be. So I'm going to make another one, but I'm not going to bolt it to the fuel injector rail. I've learnt that lesson. So I've got to find another way of skinning that particular cap. So let me grab that camera, and I'll take you under the bonnet and show you what I'm dealing with. So here we are. Here's my new Nuke Performance fuel rail, and the bigger brackets, and there's 3 brackets on this one instead of 2. And like I say, you can see now the gap between the cam cover and the fuel rail. It exposes the injectors and the injector harness, and I want to try and cover that up again. But I don't want to come off the fuel rail. I'm certainly not going to weld anything to it. And if I come off these brackets, then it's sort of like it's too far over. But on my inlet manifold behind the plenum, there are 3 little mounting points. So there's one here, there's one there, and there's one further up towards the back down there, and they're threaded M6 bosses. And I'm assuming that when they was in the original application, which was the last of the Escort Cosworths back in '96, that they held some kind of harness or something like that. But I'm thinking, if I can come off there, if I can make a post to give me something flat to bolt to, then I can just make the same shield and bolt it through the top instead of bolting it at the end. So that's my plan. So the first thing I need to do is get myself some kind of surface up here. So I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a post made that screws in to that threaded hole, and will give me essentially 3 standoffs. There's only 3 bosses, so I'm limited to 3 of them. So I'm going to create a little drawing and get some made up. And so, ta-da, here they are. So these have been machined out of stainless. It's a free cutting stainless. I wanted something that wouldn't go rusty but wasn't as soft as aluminium. And they're the right height, so that end will sit on the manifold down there, and that'll be my flat surface to mount the shield on. To go into the threaded boss on the inlet manifold, I needed a thread, and I didn't want an external thread on there, because if that thread got mullered for some reason or whatever then the whole piece is scrap, and there's 3 of them. So instead, what I'm going to use are these stainless M6 studs, which I can screw into the inlet manifold, and then these standoffs will screw in. So that will sit there coming off the inlet manifold as my other 2 roll away. And then at the top, I've got an M6 thread that I can drill through the shield and secure the shield down with. Because that's screwing in, I want it nice and tight, and I don't want to mark the shaft. I designed two little flats, which are 13mm across the flat. So a 13mm spanner will secure that. Now these parts, obviously one-offs, and trying to get something like that made, if you haven't got your own lathe, can be a real pain in the ass. I've done the traipsing around engineering factories and stuff and see if someone will do me a foreigner. But I've got a guy now, and he's a good mate of mine now, and his name is Paul Simmons, and he'll do the same things for you. So if you want little one-off bits making, you know, and he's the man, like, right, he's a really good engineer. This is a really lovely finish, and he's not doing foreigners at work. He's got his own workshop at home with a fully kitted up CNC lathe, CNC miller, so he can do milling and turning and draw the parts up and everything. Literally, all you got to do is give him a fag packet drawing, and he can do the rest. So I want to give Paul a bit of a plug, and I'm going to give you his email address now. So if you need any little one-off bits making, give him a shout, and Paul can make them for you out of pretty much any material you want, really. So let's get these on that inlet manifold and see how they work. So here they are. I screw in, mount on them bosses on the inlet manifold down the bottom, all three of them, and the height, I've designed it so it clears the harness. So it's taller than the harness, because I don't want the harness for the injectors rubbing on the shield or anything else. So I'm going to try now. Yeah, that's quite a good view. I'm going to try, this is my old shield, I'm going to try and wangle that in there. Okay. So that's close. But that's the idea. So that's aluminium sheet that I bent last time when I had it anodized black. So it looks quite nice and covers all the injectors. Initially, I had it because of the bonnet vents to keep the rain off them when I wash it. But realistically, they're all fully waterproof plugs. And I've been running without a shield now for the past couple of months since I replaced the fuel rail. And I've washed the car several times and it doesn't make any difference. But it does keep the heat of the cam cover away, and mainly it just pretties it all up and hides that ugly wiring. I need a hole there because there's a port from my Bailey catch tank and oil separator that goes through there. The hose is off at the moment. It's over here on the bench. So I need that. I need clearance for that, and then that's it. This one, because I had to make it to suit the old fuel rail, it's a little bit shorter than I wanted, and it's actually broken at the back because it fractured because I mounted it at the very extremes instead of all along this top here, which I think is going to be better. So somehow I need to make another one of them. So I've already started that, and let me show you. There we go. So I've got me Black & Decker workmate out. Well, it's not a Black & Decker. And I just got some 2mm aluminium sheet. That's all I'm using. 2mm aluminium sheet. It's about 400mm wide. And then I've used this and clamped it up. And I've bent up a new one. So I've bent it to the same profile. There you go. I've still got to put that relief in for the catch tank hose, and I've got to do my mounting points and stuff like that. So the next thing I need to do is get this over on that engine and start mounting it. So let me get on with that. Now I need to mark on the cover where I need to drill the 3 holes. to get into those standoffs, but obviously I can't see from underneath. I've already done one, and this is how I do it. I put a little threaded spike in. So let me just slip this on, because I've only got one pair of hands. Okay, so what I do is I take a grub screw, put it in a drill against the sanding wheel, and I sharpen it to a point, and then I've screwed that down into the posts. So just a little bit is poking out. Okay. And then I'll put it into position where I want it. And I've already got the first hole marked out. So excuse the shaky camera work because it's all by hand. So I've done my first one. Only ever do one at a time, because things move, and I'll tell you from experience, you'll drill an hole in the wrong place. So just lightly nip it and out. So that's located. And then I'm checking the gap between the shield and the cam cover, and I adjust it so it's equal all the way down. And with that little spike poking up from underneath, I tap this surface with a hammer. Just give it a tap and a little pimple will appear, and that's exactly where I need to drill the hole, and I know I've got it exactly in the right place. And then I just repeat it however often I need to do it, drilling one hole at a time, putting the fixing in, everything's lined up, and tap the aluminium onto that, and it marks the hole for you from behind where I could never see before. And I've used that all over the build of this car, and it's a really neat little trick. Okay, thanks to my little threaded spikes, I've got those three holes in exactly the right place. So the holes in the shield line up absolutely perfectly with the three posts underneath that were hidden. So that trick's worked a treat. And I've moved the torch so we can get the camera down and just check for clearance against the injectors and the harness. So let me get down there. So yeah, we can see all the way to the back. The harness is clear from the top, and the posts are good. So that's that bit done, but I'm not finished yet. So now I'll need to sort out that relief that's going to go to me all separator tank down into the block. So I'll sort that out, and then I'll have another look at it. I think this overhangs too much, to be honest. I mean, there's plenty of clearance against the injector rail all the way down. Yeah, it does clear all the way down there. But yeah, I think it seems a bit too long. I think I might shorten this, and I might try and fancy it up a bit as well so it doesn't look so plain. Because if you're going to do it, you might as well do it properly, eh? Let's get it off and make that relief for the oil pipe. Okay, so I've refitted the breather pipe and lined up the slot with the old shield, which used to be mounted at 4 points on the old fuel rail. And then I've used the little screw-in spike trick to mark the hole that comes off this post. So now this post and this hole is my reference point. In engineering, we call it a datum, and it's the point from which all the measures are taken, and it's a fixed point. So I know that in reference to this point here, which is the first post hole, that's where the slot needs to be. And I can transfer that to my new shield using the first hole, which is that one. And I'll know from that reference or datum where to put my slot. Hopefully. So yeah, let's mark up the new shield, cut it out, and try it on and see if I got that bit right. Okay, so slot done, and I got it bang on, which is cool. So now it's almost ready for, well, for anodizing black, really. So it blends in with everything. But before I do that, I want to take the plainness away from it. I still want to shorten this length because I think it can come back another 10 mil. It doesn't need to be that long. And I think what I'd like to do is to put some swaged holes in it, like these ones here. So I've got a little swaging press. And I think if I run a string of swaged holes down the length, I think that would look pretty cool. So what I'll do now is I'll put some masking tape on the shield so I can draw them in pencil and kind of get an idea, mark them out, get an idea of what it'll look like. Okay, welcome to my dirty shed. This is where I do all my drilling and grinding and cutting and welding, and it just keeps any shit out of where the part of the garage where the car is, so I can just keep all the mess contained. So to make this fuel injector cover a bit less plain, I'm going to put some dimple dyed holes down the edge, which I think it'll make it look pretty trick, and it'll match the other dimple dyed holes in under the bonnet. So in order to do that, these are some dimple dyed holes that I keep on this plate, so I can gauge my different sizes and I can hold it up and like. So for this job, I want to use this one here, which is a 13 mil hole with a dimple die, and this is a dimple die. So I'll just bring it a bit closer. So you've got a cone on one side and a cup on the other, and you pop them through, and as you tighten them up, they form the dimple. So for this one, 30 mil hole in the middle, and I'd put them either side of the hole, and then I'll squash them up. You can either do it in a vise, or if there's a hole in the middle, you can put a nut and a bolt in and tighten it up, and that's what I tend to do to create them. So before we get to that stage, I needed to mark out on the cover. So I used a bit of masking tape because it's much easier to draw on, and I know that the OD of my dimple die is 30 mil, and it needs to sit as close to that edge as possible. So did all my working out anyway, and I've got them nice and evenly spaced all along the length of the injector cover, and then I've centre punched the centres of each of these holes. So I've got the hole centres perfect, and they're all in line. They're all evenly spaced between each other. So that takes a little bit of working out, but it ain't difficult. And the next thing to do is over on my drill stand is to drill the holes. I'll start off with this drill first. It's nice and sharp, so it's not going to wander. And then once I've got those pilot holes in, I'll move to a bigger drill and end up with a 13 mil hole in each of these locations, and then we'll go on to dimple dyeing. So let me make a start on drilling the holes. Okay, let me put my glasses on so I can see nice and close up. Okay, cool. So that's all my pilots drilled. I can drill from this side now and keep the job flatter. Hopefully, if I can get the drill in there. Yeah. So I'm just going to change this up for a bigger hole and go at it again. I'll just try my dimple dye in there. Yeah, aluminium's pretty soft and it can distort, and it's not a very, it's nice and clean on the drilled side, but where you push through it's pretty snotty. So I'm just going to go up 1/2 mil to give me that extra clearance. So let me do that. And then finally, I'm just going to clean the hole with a chamfering tool. One of them. Okay, so I've cleaned the surface and put a light chamfer on each of the holes so they're all nice and even. It's really important, particularly with soft material like aluminium, that when you're using a dimple dye, the aluminium will mark really easy. So anything that's trapped in there, any bit of shit, it will show up in the surface, and we want this to look pretty. So it's all nice and evenly finished. And now I can get on with putting the dimple dyes in. Now normally I'm putting these kind of dimple dyes in sheet steel, and you would put a nut and bolt through there and tighten it up because it takes an awful lot of force. The limit of one of these types of things is pretty much like 2 mil thick steel, and it struggles. 1 mil, no problem, but 2 mil it really struggles, and you have to really tighten them up. Aluminium, 2 mil should be fine, and I'll probably get away with just doing it in the vise. So let me crack on with that rather than try and video the process, because there's going to be a lot of faffing about repositioning and stuff, and I'll show you the result in a second. So this is going really well, actually, much better than I expected. So I am going to show you the video of me doing it. So I'll just pop this out. I've already done these 4 holes so far, and I've got these 5 to go. So another important thing when using the dies is make sure they're the right way around. I have done it back to front and ended up with that on the outside when I wanted it on the inside. So yeah, this face goes in there. The other half of the dimple die just locates on the back, and then I'll pop it in the vise. And compress it up. And that's all it needs. 1 dimple. So you're getting the idea now. It's really pretty simple, but it's really effective, and it adds strength. Not that I need strength in this part, but if the part's stiffer, then it should stop it vibrating, and with the vibration of the engine, it's not going to tiz as you rev it. That's one, and we're nearly done. Give it a squeeze. What I'm looking for is that the edges of the die, both the front and the back half of the die, are touching the panel that I'm dimpling. And once that's done, and you can sort of feel it with the vise, to be honest, once you're fully squashed up. And there we go. So I haven't got any distortion between the two. It looks pretty good. You can see from the back they're all evenly pushed through. So now I just got it. It has marked the surface a little bit, but I can clean that up. That's, you know, it's really light surface marking. if there was a bit of crap caught in the faces of these dies, or if there was a bit of a burr on the hole, then it would have really heavily marked it and scrapped the job effectively. You have to start all over again because you're not going to get that out. So now I'm going to try this on the car and I'll see how it looks. There we go. I think that looks really effective. Pretty cool. Certainly better. You remember, this was the old one. So I'm going to get the new one, anodized black, the same. But before I do that, I've just got to clean like these witness marks from the press off. So that's just a light sand. I probably will take 5-7 mm off the bottom edge of that because it doesn't need to overhang the fuel rail that much. And sometimes less is more. And also I'm going to put a relief in at the back down there so it's easier to get to my oil dipstick, which was a bit of a pain with the last one. So yeah, just cut a little relief out, clean up them witness marks, trim that bottom edge. I'll probably round off these corners here, and then I'll send it off to the anodizers and get it anodized black, and that should look pretty cool. Right, it's a few days later and I've been to the anodizers and I've been to the barbers and I got some stuff back. So that is an extended turbo drain for the turbo, which allows me to hopefully route things a bit neater, and that's come out. That's come out really well. I don't know if that'll focus. Next is oh yeah. So this is my number plate plinth that I've got on the front of the car, and so it's just like 1/4 inch thick aluminium plate, and to stop it going all corroded and horrible because it's down at the front of the front panel, I've had that anodized. The standard like pressed aluminium plates are really thin and they bend really easy, and if I just bolt it to the car with the wind, it's going to flap around and scratch the paint. So I put that on. Actually, I'm going to quickly show you that now. Right, just quickly then, I'm going to show you my front panel. So normally the number plate would go here where these holes are, but I've got these holes in this front panel for the intercooler, which is mounted directly behind it. And then as you go down, you've only got this thin, probably 20 mm wide flat section to mount to, so there's nothing supporting it. So I welded these two brackets on. I made these out of 2 mm thick mild steel, and they're welded top and bottom, and they give me somewhere then to mount that number plate plinth on that thick piece of alloy sheet, and I can bolt my number plate to the plinth and no more flapping. And it's that simple really, but it is really effective. So let's go back to the bench. So back at my cardboard box from the anodizers, this will be my injector harness cover. Okay, yeah, that's come out really nice. So like any surface coating, preparation is key, and if I want a really glossy finish, I have to like mirror polish the aluminium first and it comes out really shiny. But if I want a satin finish like this, I use some green Scotch pad and just brush it all in the same direction with it like in soapy water. It gets a really nice smooth even finish, and the anodizing comes out really well. So yeah, that's going to look quite effective. And the reason I anodize stuff is, one, because it looks a lot prettier, and two, is because it stops the bare aluminium from oxidizing. And look, as soon as the bare aluminium senses a bit of water, it goes white and horrible, and you have to keep on top of it with Duraglit or other aluminium polishes, and it's just a pain in the ass. And I'm a bit over the mirror finish sort of polishing sort of stage of my life, and I'd rather just wash and go, and anodizing is a really good solution, and I think it'll match the rest of the anodizing under the bonnet. So let's go and throw it under the bonnet, fit it to the car, to my new post that Paul made for me, and see how it looks. Okay, it's on. You can see I shortened that, took about 5mm because it was overhanging too much. And I've rounded these corners off. And I put a relief in at the back so I could get to my dipstick. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. It covers all them ugly wires and plugs. And I think it looks really effective. The black anodizing matches the rest of the stuff. And that'll be maintenance free, wash and go. There's plenty of clearance down there. Yeah, pretty cool. Something else I did while I was working under the bonnet, as I moved this is an oil pressure regulator. It goes in the oil feed line to the turbo, and previously it was mounted here off these 2 points, which is an old fixing points for the cam belt cover, and I had the hose coming out down there, across the top of the cam cover, and then into the turbo, but it sort of sat there like a big ugly zit, and yeah, I didn't really like it, so I've relocated it. I've replumbed the hose in now, goes around the back of the cylinder head, and I made a little bracket out of stainless steel, this one here, and it's got a little return on it. So I'm using the fixing point, which was the old cylinder head lifting eye, and I've countersunk it and put that return on it, so because it's only mounted, it stops it from pivoting. And then the oil pressure regulator is now mounted on that, and then I replumbed it in AN4, so it sits tucked out in the back corner and leaves the cam cover a lot clearer. So yeah, that's really tidied up. Couple of little bits that were bothering me. Okay, so that's a wrap for this video. That's all finished. I'm really pleased with it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and until next time, thanks very much.